Welcome to the Connected Enterprise podcast. This is Carl Lewis, your guest from Vision 33. I should say I'm your host from Vision 33. And my guest today is Raghu Bala. Mr. Bala is the CEO of netObjex and is quite credentialed. One thing that caught my eye is that he has actually taught a course on blockchain at MIT. So I want to talk today about blockchain with Raghu Bala. Raghu, welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the work you do there at netObjex.
Thank you, Carl. My name is Raghu Bala. I'm the CEO of netObjex. We are a company based in Southern California with operations in Vietnam, India, and we've got customers in 4 continents, North America, Europe, Asia, as well as Australia. What we do at netObjex is we are a digital asset as a service platform. So for those who are listening in for the first time, digital assets are the best way to say it is assets that are being maintained in a digital format, but usually there's an involvement of IoT, AI, and blockchain involved, and that's what we're going to cover today. And just quickly, I'll say digital assets as a service covers things like things which are innately digital, that is music, movies, things of that nature. Physical assets, which could be a fleet of cars, containers for shipping, or any sort of buildings or any sort of things like that, as well as what we call dynamic assets, things which we need to measure like water, carbon credits, and so on. All of those 3 asset classes are combined into what we call digital asset as a service. We also tokenize these assets so that they become either fungible or non-fungible tokens. And you must have heard about all of these when you read the common press about cryptocurrencies and so on. We'll try to connect the dots in this podcast today.
Very interesting. A blockchain is a topic. It's been out there for several years now. I think, the enterprise space is, sort of up to full speed, at least as full speed as we can with the current technologies about blockchain. But many of the smaller and medium businesses sort of don't really know what it is. They wonder if it's benefiting them already. So if you can give us a primer on what it is and why small and medium businesses should really care about what blockchain is.
Yeah, so I'll try to make it simple and in layman's terms. So blockchain actually is what we call a distributed database. So in the past, what's happened is all of your information is stored within databases that are controlled by a central entity. It could be the government, it could be a particular enterprise. So for example, all of us use Facebook, all of us use Google and things of that nature, Apple and so on. They hold a lot of data that is personal to you and me. They know which websites you went to, they know what you bought, they can track you from A to Z. And that's the truth, because a lot of times we don't pay for Google. And there's a joke in the industry, when you don't pay for anything, you are the product. So what happens is we are the product when it comes to Google, because they are taking our data for free and then trying to sell our data to other entities like advertisers and so on, so that when they want to sell an advertising campaign, they're targeting you. But then here comes blockchain, and blockchain's philosophy is more, in a kind of a political sense, it's more democratic and social as opposed to more sort of capitalist. So in the blockchain sense, what we are doing is we are trying to say that, okay, the data belongs to you, not to these big entities, whether it be the government or any particular central entity like Google or Facebook and so on. So that's the kind of like overarching principle that one needs to keep in mind when talking about blockchain. So now the data belongs to you. So where is the database stored? The database is not stored with one of these central authorities. It is distributed. It's distributed among the public. And so different people can operate nodes that hold copies of this data. So this data can be gleaned from open sources, which are not controlled by any particular entity. That's the idea behind blockchain. So for small enterprises, why do they need to be part of the blockchain ecosystem, or at least start to make inroads into the blockchain ecosystem? So where business is headed is Actually, as a small business, you should welcome this move because now you have an equal playing field compared to what was there before. So, for example, if you thought that you couldn't compete with Google, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and so on, now you can. So, let me give you a quick example. So, for example, I am currently consulting with a firm in Los Angeles, which is one of the media capitals of the world. One would agree. And the founder of the startup that I'm consulting for is actually trying to decentralize the music and media market. And so what he's trying to do is, if you look at the music and media market, big companies, again, Google through YouTube or Spotify, they control what music you listen to and how much the artists are paid. Okay, so in general, apparently, I went to an event at the lawyers conference for the music artists, which is held in conjunction with one of the large music events in LA. And then I found out that a music artist is supposed to make something like 30 cents for every play of his song, let's say. So now what happens is they get paid something like 8 cents, not 30 cents, 8 cents. That's a huge discount. That's because that's how Spotify and Google and other players have negotiated their deals with the labels. So the labels represent the artists, and the artists are at the sort of behest of the labels, and they have no say in figuring out what the actual revenues ought to be. So if the artist gets a check in the mail saying like, okay, I got $1,000 this month. Does he know how many times his music was played? No. Does he know where it was played? No. There's no real traceability or accountability. And so what blockchain is trying to do in the media industry is to provide artists a way in which they can control the revenues. And so the company that I'm consulting for, what they're trying to do is allowing artists to actually release their music to the public directly, skip all the labels, disintermediate the market. And blockchain is a big enabler in making this happen because it enables music to be distributed, funds to be collected, and so on. So now you have a different ecosystem altogether. Will this take off? I don't know. But then I'll tell you that it's definitely an alternative to the current way in which business is operated, because the people who actually are the creators of this content currently have got no say in it. But now with the new ecosystem, they have a say in it. And I'll just mention one more example before I hand it back over to you, Carl, which is if you look at what's happening in the NFT market, artists, painters, sculptors, and so on, they are starting to put their works on platforms like OpenSea, Rarible, Nifty, and so on. This NFT craze, this boom is happening because now it's called the creator economy. The creators are able to bring their works directly to the public without having to go through a middleman. So it's the same disintermediation that we have seen in stockbroking or in travel agencies and so on. You can book your flight through Expedia. You don't need to go through a travel agent. You can buy stocks. In the old days, you needed to pay 2% commission. Nowadays, it's a flat $8.99. Why is that? Because technology disintermediates the middleman, makes it a level playing field. So that's what's happening in the creator economy, whether it's be music, movies, content of any sort. That's happening right now.
Very interesting. The vast majority of the customers that I work with are sort of distributors, manufacturers. Many of them import goods from overseas, distribute throughout North America, and some of them do business internationally as well. How is blockchain and that technology benefiting those kinds of businesses?
So for those kinds of businesses, what could set them apart is now, for example, if a particular entity that you're working with is losing market share to, let's say, an Amazon. So now they can now compete with an Amazon on a kind of a level playing field. They can go after customers because they can say that you now have the same pricing power, the same reach that Amazon has, because the blockchain economy is very big. It's global. There are a lot of people who believe in disintermediation. So now you have a very interesting phenomenon where you can now become a storefront, a provider of goods and services directly to consumer. And now you don't need to pay high fees or be beholden to a larger enterprise who is trying to market your products. So this is an opportunity. I think over time, this will become a reality where these vendors that you have, the small and medium enterprises, can be found through blockchain and be able to sell their goods and services to consumers without having to give up a lot of margin to the larger enterprises.
Interesting. You used a word there, disintermediation. Is that the same as cutting out the middleman? Is that what we're talking about?
It's cutting out the middleman, but also cutting out the big middleman. In this case, it'll be like the big film distributors, the big e-commerce companies such as Amazon or others, so eBay and things like that. So you now have the same opportunity as the big players. You have the same reach. You have the same, other people can find you and things like that. So that's the opportunity. It'll take time to sort of unfold and so on, but that's what we're talking about.
What kind of a time frame do you think? I mean, I don't know. I think the first time I heard about blockchain might have been about 5 years ago. What do you think will it take a number of years from now for blockchain and its capabilities to kind of reach a level of maturity that many businesses might be able to take advantage of?
So something, some of the listeners might be aware of something called Moore's law. So Moore's law says that every 18 months, technology doubles in its capability and capacity and so on. So a lot of things which took 5 years, 10 years to make it to market today take 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. In my opinion, I think within 2 to 3 years, some of these capabilities of blockchain will come to market much sooner than what one expects. So some of these small and medium enterprises, I would encourage them to get up to date on the opportunity and not miss the boat, because I think these opportunities don't come around every day. So you have an opportunity to make a brand of yourself, to get known by your consumers. And I think to answer your question, I think a 2 to 3 year time horizon is plenty good. But then I think the legwork that these enterprises, small and medium enterprises, need to do begins now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pay attention now. Do your reading, watch the research. Be sure that when you need to make a decision, you're prepared to do it. So that sounds great. So we've talked a little bit about the benefits to the businesses that are out there, large and small. What about the consumer? How does blockchain come down to a benefit to the consumer in particular?
So from a consumer standpoint, a blockchain has got a number of benefits. First of all, the issue is let's say, and I do know the listeners are primarily in the e-commerce market, mm-hmm. and so your consumers can now have a large degree of a conviction that the players in the blockchain market are actually there is a less chance of fraud. There's less chance of things like phishing. There's less chance of scams and things like that using blockchain. Why? Because the analogy I give people is, let's imagine you have a bank and it's wide open at 9 o'clock at night, and you can even walk into the vault and even rob the bank. But then I've got all the spotlights, I've got all the internet connections in the world looking at the bank, and everyone knows that you went to rob the bank. So that's what blockchain is. Blockchain is very, very transparent. Okay, it's very transparent. So it makes it impossible, even though it's transparent, but it's actually a deterrent for any sort of scam, any sort of what I call players who are not up to the mark, providing goods and services. So if you look at Amazon, for example, if you look at the number of negative reviews and things like that, a lot of the products in Amazon, for example, don't have good reviews. I mean, that's the fact. If you look at Yelp, you'll see a number of things which are, you don't even know if the reviews are good, or someone planted them. You don't even know that for a fact as a consumer.
Right.
So if you use blockchain, a lot of these things will get ferreted out. And also, I'll tell you a funny thing. Some of these companies, I'll not mention the name here, but some of these companies, what they do is they even ask you, like, if you give me X number of dollars, I'll be able to remove the negative reviews for you.
Right.
Blockchain is not like that, because it's, it's some, if you look at it from a funny standpoint, this is some sort of corruption, that I'll remove a negative review for you. You don't know who planted the negative review in the first place. And so blockchain prevents these types of manipulation of the consumer. And so for the consumers, they can be assured that they are going to get the truth, the real truth, whatever it is, whether it's truth in pricing, truth in data, truth in reviews, and all of these things that we currently, sometimes when we look at reviews, we think like, I don't know whether that review is really true or false, or someone planted it. In fact, if some of the listeners went to do some research on Google, you'll know that on Amazon, some of the reviews are fake. It's a fact. I'm not making it up. You can go and check it out. In fact, Amazon had a session where they had to go and remove those fake reviews, because someone puts up a product and they put good reviews for themselves and bad reviews for their competitors. That sort of thing becomes harder to do when you have a blockchain involved, because it's all very transparent. It's not hidden behind some database that no one can see. If everyone in the world can see, like my example of a bank where I open the vault, but no one wants to rob because they can be easily found out. And so that's sort of an idea. You have to think about it like that. So blockchain is very good for consumers, and I think that sort of answers your question, Carl.
Yeah. I know that your company's been doing some things during the pandemic time that we've been in, utilizing blockchain. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and kind of how the pandemic and blockchain have been kind of collaborating here to make things better?
Sure. So one of the directions from a kind of a goodwill perspective that my investors put us onto was in the COVID area. That sort of pandemic related. So we created a product called COVID Pre-Auth, which currently is being used by thousands of people across North America. And it's got three functions, which is the self-attestation for workers coming to work to make sure that they're not sick or anything like that. Second is for testing. And third is for contact tracing. And so why did we introduce the product? And the reason we introduced the product was because there's a market need, as well as it's a kind of a humanitarian function where we are trying to reduce the spread of this particular infection. And again, we are utilizing the technologies that we already have in our midst, which is IoT, AI, and blockchain, which is what netObjex has in its platform. And so through the use of the technology, we're able to help enterprises ensure that there's a safe and healthy workplace environment for their workers. And also for companies, like one of our clients is a large hotel chain. It not only helps the workers there, but also helps the guests, because people who want to stay at a hotel want to be sure that they're not getting COVID from some of the workers who work there. So we have a protocol that is built into our platform that enables one to ensure that safety measures, which are CDC guideline oriented, are being met. So that's what we have done in the COVID area during this pandemic period.
Interesting, very interesting. Well, Raghu, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been helpful, I think, and best of luck to you guys as you continue to work in this area of blockchain. And I think it's been an encouragement to some of our listeners to kind of learn a little bit more about blockchain and its potential benefits to their businesses and to their customers. So thanks much. And
thank you, Carl, for having me. And I think any listeners who want to contact us can contact me via LinkedIn. And I also happen to teach AI and blockchain for MIT, as you mentioned earlier. And there's a lot of potential for this technology in the small and medium businesses. I encourage anyone to talk to us and discover the possibilities in front of them. Thank you again.
Thank you. And for everyone out there, until we talk again, stay connected.